So I went. When I went, I realized that not only was I not starting transition too early, I was actually starting it too late. And so when I got to training group, I said, we need to start our own transition program. The only goal is to get guys started early. If I can just get them started early, 2 years instead of 1 year, that'll really give them a leg up. And so that's what we did. We started toying with this idea of a transition program. And at that same time, I met a guy who was transitioning himself, Drew Stamp. And Drew was at the time he was an E7, but he eventually got promoted to Master Sergeant. But he was getting ready to medically retire because he'd been shot twice in Afghanistan. So he'd done a lot of work, and it was like COVID, it was during COVID. So he'd done a lot of work in, figuring out transition and talking to nonprofits and all sorts of kind of stuff. And we met, just a total coincidence. He looked me up on LinkedIn, had no idea we worked in the same headquarters. No clue. But he was like, oh, this guy looks interesting. He's from Fayetteville. He couldn't really tell I was in the military. And he called me or he emailed me and said, hey, I'd love to get together and, just meet. And I said, yeah, come over to my office in Bank Hall. He's like, Bank Hall? He's like, our Bank Hall? I was like, yeah. So he had no idea. We were working basically across the street from one another. So he came over and sat down, and within 15 minutes, I was like, oh, I got to have this guy run this program. So I sold my soul to a couple of sergeant majors to get this E7 transferred from the G3 shop at SWIC over to us as excess in special warfare training. But I pulled it off. And so Drew came over to work for me to build this program. And that's what we did. And we built this program. I went on leave. I was like, look, we got to come up with a name. It's got to have a brand, I went on leave, and I came back a week later, and they had named it the Janus program. They had like a little whiteboard session with a couple of dudes. I think it was this guy, Will Cunningham, who was the Group S3 at the time. I think Will actually came up with the name Janus. And I came back, I was like, what are you, crazy? Every soldier's going to call this J Anus. This isn't going to work. I was like, this is a terrible idea. And I was like, all right, whatever. So we stuck with Janus, because Janus is the Roman god of transition. That's where the name came from. So we created the Janus program, but it was part of training group. It was an active duty training group program. And so we started talking to people, and at first we were just advising them kind of one-on-one, But then we realized, man, we're telling them the same thing over and over and over again. Maybe we should do like a workshop where we can talk to a bunch of people all at once. So we started doing that. And then somebody at 10th Group, a guy by the name of Ignacio Garza, he started a nonprofit called the Special Forces Foundation, mostly helping 10th Group out in Colorado, but but their charter is to help everybody in the regiment. But that's where they're from. And so he heard about what we were doing. He's like, listen, we're thinking about a transition program. Can you come out and tell us about, what you've learned? And we're like, absolutely. So we went out there, we met with Ignacio, and he was like, hey, listen. He was like, instead of us starting a program, can you just come out and do it? And we're like, yeah, sure, we'll come out and do it. So we went out to 10th Group, and we did like a workshop, a Janus workshop. And then it just blew up from there. And every group started calling us, and we're like, hey, can you come do a workshop? Can you? And so we kind of built it over time under this safety umbrella of active duty. And then, Drew was getting out. He was medically retiring, right? But he was like, I'm going to put that off because if they'll just let me do this full time for now, I'll just do this until it's, while we get it built. So he extended, ended up getting promoted to E8, Master Sergeant. But of course, he was never going to go back to it. He wasn't going back to group. He was going to medically retire no matter what. But we started to see the barn door for both of us. Like my retirement was set in stone. When my special warfare training group gig was up, I was definitely retiring then. There was no two ways about that. And Drew was definitely medically retiring. And I told him, I said, look, man, I've been doing this a long time. If we leave this here, it will die. And it won't die because of malevolence or maliciousness. It'll die because of the passive indifference of bureaucracy. No one's going to be as passionate as we are. No one's going to have the expertise that we've built up over the last couple of years. So we should take this with us when we go. And that's what we did. So in 2021, while we were still on active duty, we incorporated as the Donovan and Bank Foundation. Because I knew I needed, and I'll tell you the story where that came from too. We needed an overarching umbrella, right? Because you needed room for other programs other than Janus, because I knew there would be other things that would be required. And so we created the Donovan and Bank Foundation, and Janus program became our flagship program. And that was in 2021. We were both on active duty, and at that moment, the minute we were incorporated, not when we had our 501c3 status, but the minute we were incorporated in North Carolina, That's when I was like, okay, we can never accept another nickel from the government. We can't do this TDY, nothing. We got to do it out of our own pocket because now we're an official thing, right? So even though we're still on active duty, we didn't use any government resources at that point. I knew how that shit worked. And lo and behold, like 6 months later, somebody made an IG complaint against us, like, oh, these guys are doing like nonprofit work, using government money. And I'm like, the fuck we are. I was like, here's the books, man. I was like, I know better.